just have to be sitting in the waiting room somewhere and stuff. It doesn't help anyways.
Yeah, I know.
Or the bottom of that, I need to,
Yeah.
the proper line of turn and move. So, and then I said, I must have a, like,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm putting.
Catching up,
But I'm okay with that.
she has the keys too.
We're going to call the Vermilion Township Board of Trustees General Business Meeting of Wednesday, March 5th, 2025 to order at 6:30. Please stand for Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Trustee Scott? Here. Trustee Bachman?
Here.
Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the February meeting?
I'll make the motion.
A second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. I'm gonna make a motion to accept the treasury report.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And I will make a motion to approve the warrants.
Second.
Motion been made second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do we have any correspondence? Okay, we don't have any speakers. Moving on. Fire department report, chief.
Good evening, everybody. Fire EMS runs February 1, 2025 through the 28th of February 2025. We had one gas line that was struck and leaking. We ran 42 EMS runs. We ran on 2 hazardous conditions, 5 motor vehicle crashes. We did have 1 barn fire, and we had a duplicate dispatch to a call we had previously been on, which was, those happen from time to time. It's an error between county and us, and pushing a button and so on and so forth. They're looking into it. I looked into it, and it's something that I don't think it's ever gonna go away. It's just, it happens from time to time, so we gained a ghost run there. Year to date, we're at 108 runs. The February fire and EMS reports are complete and have been submitted to the state of Ohio. Our Life Pack 35s, which we recently purchased, are in service and on the trucks, and I will contact the vendor in a few weeks to release the Life Pack 15s, which was part of the initial contract for trade-in value, so those will go away. Our art packs will be tested this month during the month of March, and I will begin scheduling truck maintenance, preventative maintenance, and pump testing in March, as well as the hose testing. 2 additional items that didn't get listed on your sheet our vac mattress that I'd sent to Hartwell Medical was sent in for evaluation because it's kind of like a body cast, put the patient in it, and we roll it in, and then we pull a vacuum on it. It developed a leak. It was out of warranty. However, as Hartwell Medical has done in the past, they sent me an email late tonight and said, Chief, we gotta take your mattress out of service. However, we're sending you a brand new mattress at no cost. So, they've done that for us twice now. It seems like right after 5 years that something happens and it gets poked and so on and so forth. So, I do have a firefighter who requested to park his RV on the premise tomorrow morning just for one day. He's having a tree removed in his yard. He surely doesn't want that to tree company to drop that on his RV, so I granted him an okay for that. So if you gentlemen see that, and you won't have to call me and say, what's going on out there? And that completes my report.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the chief? I would only comment they had a rough week, and we're all very proud of everything they've been able to do. All these recent dumpster fires on the highway and structure fires. Great job.
Thank you.
All right, next, Administrator, Zoning Department report. Mr. Sexton.
Good evening, everyone. In the past month, the zoning office issued 3 permits with fees of $564 were paid. The annual Vermilion Township Zoning Board and Board of Zoning Appeals organizational meetings were held February 13th. I would like to thank Tim King, Erie Regional Planning, for his presentation at these meetings. This evening, I would ask for your consideration to initiate the bid process with the Erie County Engineers Office for the South Cherry Road Stormwater Replacement Project. The scope of work for this project is to replace the current deteriorating 6-inch clay tile with smooth wall PVC. The estimated cost of this project is $309,984. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sexton. Are there any questions?
What's the linear feet on that project, do we know?
About 1,220 feet,
Okay,
and that's just straight linear,
Yeah.
tip to tip.
that's all I got.
Okay. So you just need a motion to authorize the county to put it out for bid.
Put together the bid packet, and then at that point, we would receive in all the bids, and then open the bids at the next meeting.
Might as well do that right now.
Okay.
So I'm making a motion to authorize the Erie County Engineers Office to initiate the bid process for the South Cherry Road Storm Sewer Replacement Project.
Correct.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Anything else? Road Department report, Mr. Young.
It was another busy month, February, snow and ice removal. We ordered 250 tons of salt. We had 2 more repairs on the Western Star that were able to be done in-house. I'd like the trustees to change the clothing allowance to 1 lump sum in March, so we have the entire year to spend it. And I would also like trustees to consider in the future selling the old backhoe. This machine is 25 years old. Replace it with a compact loader. And I have talked to Stephanie about this. Road maintenance culvert reports have been completed and turned into Erie County Engineers Office. And we have been having a problem on Wine Street during snow events with parking on the road. So we're gonna have to address that. We have to come up with some kind of, like, I think a resolution, so that the sheriff has it, so they can ticket them, or we can just have it towed.
I thought that was done.
Former trustee changed it,
Gotcha.
so we need to look at it. I mean, something to look at for next year. It's getting ridiculous, so if you go back and there's 10 cars sitting on the road.
Yeah.
Got enough obstacles besides them putting all their garbage cans out in the road. We even got it out in the rural streets that put the can out in the road.
Right.
Got mailboxes we gotta deal with, traffic, we don't need more obstacles.
Right.
That's all I got.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Young?
I would only point out that Keith and I had a discussion about Haver Road last year. Remember we were talking about parking? And the thing
things that stuff we had to do to get a parking.
Oh,
Yeah,
Right.
so maybe we'll need to look at that for all streets, not just the line street. So,
That's the worst one we got.
but it's not a slam dunk, make a motion to do it.
No.
There's some work involved. So,
So that's why Keith can look into what we
Surprised,
gotta do.
because I thought it was done.
yeah.
We got people just won't move back there. And the Spectrum's truck sits on the road 24/7. Get to the point where it's push the snow up to the front, push up to the back, go around.
Don't say that in a public meeting. Mr. Young. Next fiscal officer's report. Mrs. Johnson.
Okay, while reviewing the township's real property tax statement, I noticed a discrepancy. And after speaking with the Erie County Treasurer's Office and the Erie County Auditor's Office, the parcel in question qualified for an automatic exemption, saving the township $1,134.88. Because of this, I asked for a review of the other parcels. One other parcel is available for exemption, but it is not automatic. And I am in the process of applying for that exemption. The Board of Embalmers and Funeral Directors are now accepting applications for the Indigent Burial and Cremation Support Program. The funding is allocated at $1 million for 2025. House Bill 315, the Township Omnibus Bill, provides local government reimbursement for the cost of providing burials or cremations to indigent deceased persons, and I am in the process of applying for the program for the township's last indigent burial. The township collects hotel excise lodging tax by means of cash or check directly to the office. Erie County has a program to collect this tax on behalf of the townships, along with the county portion. I would like to take advantage of this program to simplify the payment process. The auditor's office just requires a resolution from the trustees. And that is all.
Thank you. Any questions for the fiscal officer? Hearing none, we're gonna move in. Old business. So the first thing I have on it is employee compensation. I know that we discussed this back on January 2nd. We had an employee who's still in probationary period. He is out of probationary period. And some other information pertaining to other employees, I was able to get clarification on. And so I would like to make motions to reestablish salaries for a few employees. The road department salaries are comparable to the industry for this area, where we're gonna move them to. This is through a lot of hard work through Mr. Sexton, so I wanna thank him for that. I'm just gonna make the motion. If you guys agree, vote with me. I'm gonna start with a motion to reestablish the salary for Ryan Cole at a wage of $28 per hour with insurance benefits, vacation days, and holidays as outlined in the Vermilion Township Employee Handbook. And this is to be effective March 14th, 2025.
I'll second that.
Motion been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I guess I'd ask Stephanie how much wiggle room we have in our road department budget to do these.
We do.
Comfortable? not
Yes,
just-
yes.
We're not gonna rob
absolutely.
everything away.
Correct, it's good.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. And the other thing I will add is that, the way I look at it is our employees are the township.
Mhm.
We have very good employees. Steve and Ryan, I know just the couple months that Ryan's been here, they're very impressed with him. Hard worker, learns quick. When you find good employees, you gotta treat them right in order to keep them, and that's what we have to do. So motion been made and seconded, no more discussion. Trustee Scott,
Yes.
trustee Bachman,
I'm gonna abstain on this one.
and I am a yes, motion carries. The next is a motion to reestablish the salary for Steve Young at a wage of $31 per hour with insurance benefits, vacation days, and holidays, as outlined in the Vermilion Township Employee Handbook. That's to be effective March 14th, 2025. I know that, motion been made. Can I get a second?
A second, bring it to discussion.
Any discussion?
Go ahead.
I know that we did reestablish the salary at the beginning of the year. It wasn't quite up to where it needed to be comparable with the area, surrounding area. So that's why I was proposing this, and it also keeps the increases the same between the two road crew employees. Any other discussion?
Definitely worth it.
Hearing none. Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Bachman,
I'm gonna abstain on this one as well.
and I am a yes. Motion carries. And the last is to reestablish the salary for Frank Triana at $21.24. That's $2,124 per month, with a $50 per month cell phone reimbursement. The salary is based on a 20-hour work week, and this is to be effective for the March pay period.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? I know that at the beginning here, there was a question as if the chief could make any more due to retirement, but I did talk to him, and that's not a problem.
Okay.
So that's why I'm bringing this forth. Any other discussion?
On the chief? No.
All right, trustee Scott,
Yes.
trustee Bachman,
Yes.
I'm a yes, motion carries. Next thing on the old business is the zoning fee review. I'm going to punt that to Mr. Sexton.
I've done some more research, received some input. I don't have anything solid right now that I can present to the board that I feel that would be adequate to have a vote or even discuss. So again, I would have to table that discussion for a later date.
Okay. Is there any discussion with the trustees?
You just weren't here last month, so I know you missed out on the opportunity to put your input in.
Yeah.
And you are a building guy, so, Keith and I sat down after the meeting and discussed zoning fees and why they are where they are. And it just seems to me that some of these zoning fees are a little higher than they should be. And with property taxes going up, if there's a way we can make it easier for the residents to survive financially, this might be one. People pay a building permit fee to build a house and then pay a couple $100 more for a zoning permit fee. And there's really, from talking to Keith, not a lot of work involved in issuing a zoning permit. Or like a pool. Well, it's, you look at the piece of paper and say, yep, that's a pool, it's not too close to the property line, you're good to go. So there's not a lot of work there, so charging a $50 fee just doesn't seem reasonable to me. So, I'm of the opinion that we should be knocking some of these fees back and some of them down. Keith and I had a discussion about, on PUDs, charging by acreage, which I don't wanna speak for you, but I thought it was a really good idea, so. And maybe that's something that we should be thinking and considering. I did draft what I thought was a good idea, just my ideas, to give to Keith. I gave it to him to let him chew over it. I can give you guys a copy of it too, but, you know, we haven't adjusted the fees since 2009.
Right.
It's time, and it's not necessarily time to raise them, it's just time to look at them, clean them up, and, in my book, lower them. So, that's all I wanted to talk about tonight.
Okay. So you have the document that trustee Bachman?
That I do, and again, I just haven't been able to make a fair comparison.
Right.
You know, with regards to presenting to the board, you know, complete package. And I don't wanna give a half-done package to the board and we go back and forth. And
Right.
I prefer having, you know, it fully documented.
Yeah, when you have that, make sure you forward it to all three trustees.
Yep, absolutely, yeah, I just,
All right, and we'll just bump this to next meeting.
fair enough, thanks.
next on our agenda, we're going to new business, and first up is Redwood Final Development Plan. I believe we have folks here representing the project, if you would like to come forward and.
Thank you. Patricia Ricosi with Redwood, 7007 East Pleasant Valley Road, Independence, Ohio. I'm here this evening with my engineer, Matt Duncan, and my traffic engineer, Erica Smith, and we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Sorry, caught me in a drink. So I've looked over everything. I do have a couple of questions and one comment. My first question is, do you have a name for this? And because I'm leading to something.
Redwood.
Just Redwood?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because in the plans here prepared by Davy Group, it's called Redwood City of Vermilion. Not that big of a deal, except if this is approved and it moves forward, that really should be changed to Vermilion Township before you file any documents, just so
Agreed.
down the road, there's
My
no confusion.
apologies.
Yeah, no problem.
That should not happen. I'm not sure, like, my apologies. It says, like, when I'm looking at the approved plan, too, it says Township Vermilion, County of Erie.
Right. Yeah, not a problem. This one here, it's got Redwood City of Vermilion on it.
Yeah, that's the landscape plan.
Okay,
So,
We can
like I
We'll
said,
take
just
care of
discuss it.
Yep.
change that.
noted. We'll take care of it.
There was something else that I noticed. There was a water easement coming down from the north, cutting through Line Street. What is that for?
You wanna speak to that better than me?
Sure.
It's because the county required that, but go ahead.
Matt Duncan, Davy Resource Group. The reason for that is the county requested that we tie in so that we could loop the water main. So we're not just tying in onto the water main on State Route 60. They wanted us to tie in to the water main, existing water main on Wine Street.
Gotcha. Appreciate that.
Just like-
Other questions? I don't know. Monopolize.
I got a few, but, I guess I'll start with mine. The final development plan, who takes responsibility for it being accurate and right and saying it's good? I guess, is that you guys, or is it somebody else, or your engineer, or? I'll give you an example. On this front page here, it says gas wells, none located on the ODNR well viewer. Well, there is one. There is a gas well. It's an orphan well. It's up next to the house. And when I went to the ODNR viewer, I found it. So I don't know if your engineer just missed it because he was in the wrong mode of the ODNR's website. But the concern here is that a well, an orphan well, has to be capped. You can't just obviously build a house over a well. And in order to do that, you need to get a permit from ODNR. And that's a process that has not yet been achieved. So I have concerns that that process has been overlooked. And I don't want you to go, oh, you know, we were gonna start building, but now we've discovered we gotta do this. So instead of building and then saying, oh, we gotta fix it, I figured I'd point it out and say, yeah, that's there's that one.
Can I speak to that, if you
yeah.
don't mind?
Yes, please.
Actually, we already have a contract with an ODNR representative, that will cap that well in like the next 3 weeks.
Okay. So you are aware of it, it's just.
Of course.
We don't have that information here in front of us. You see the disconnect there?
No. As a developer, we need to know exactly what's going on with our property when we purchase something. And we do know there was a gas well there, and we're taking all the, assurances with ODNR and what we're going through to cap that well. And, the sellers know that, and we've been working with them on that.
Okay.
We can adjust we can fix that on the sheet. I
Like
guess
is
if you could make that part of the.
Our zoning resolution is very specific on all the requirements that are required to give you the PUD. And when we give you a PUD, and I'm just spitballing it a little bit here, says that we're gonna take away all the existing zoning on the property. It's no longer gonna be agriculture, it's just gonna be PUD. And when we do a PUD, we have to set the parameters for that piece of property as far as setbacks and the like. We have to determine that. So if we wanna say you have to have sidewalks, we need to say that here. Cause as Chairman Kurtz pointed out several months ago with the old Redwood, we didn't cover that, the other trustees before us didn't cover that, and it got missed. So he's extra cautious and I'm extra cautious to make sure we don't miss anything. So 5, 10 years from now, when there are different people sitting in these chairs, they don't look back and look at us and go, oh, those guys missed everything. So we're gonna be extra cautious.
We
We're gonna
appreciate that.
cover every detail, both for you and for the property owner that's gonna sell. One of the questions that I had that I put to Mr. Bennett earlier today was, for us to change the PUD, it has to be at the request of the owner. And right now, Redwood is not the owner. So I'm just a little concerned that we can't approve it until you are the owner. So I guess my first question is, when are you guys gonna be the owner?
When we get, oh, okay. We cannot own the property
Okay,
until we get our loan from the bank. And we cannot get the loan from the bank until we have final approval.
so you're telling me it's a catch-22 for you?
I don't think it's catch-22 at all. I'm just
Okay.
saying that once we have our final approvals, then we go to the bank and they give us the construction loan. And that's how that works.
Bob?
I've known, from projects that I was involved with when I was with the city that, typically the way it's looked at is if they have a option on the property, you have a purchase agreement
Yeah,
to purchase the property, so that's the legal binding thing that says they're going to be the owner, but they have to have these things before they're able to. So, because like, even the Board of Zoning Appeals, you've gotta be the property owner in order to make application, but sometimes when property's selling, and we've had that issue come up too. So, as long as there was an option on the property, that's how they look at
I
it.
don't see that in our packets. I don't see that there's a documentation that says you're going to be the owner. So that was my concern there. My big one, everybody knows I'm all about sidewalks. And your plans don't, you guys do a beautiful job. Don't get me wrong, the engineer did inspect out all the drainage things and the slopes of roads. Fantastic. But I don't see any specs or details on sidewalks, which leads me to assume, and you know what that means, that you don't have plans for a 6-foot wide sidewalk across the front where Route 60 is. And I want something in writing that says, yes, this is absolutely gonna be an integral part of our Redwood development. There will be a sidewalk across the front of that property. And I don't see that in the paper that was given to me, so.
It is on there,
Okay.
there is a sidewalk there. To be clear though, we're calling out for a 4-foot sidewalk, so I don't know if there
There is
is.
6 foot in their zoning though?
It is, I did see it in here, that's what I was looking for, that they did call out a 4-foot sidewalk along 60. But yeah, I think that sidewalk has to be 6 foot.
Okay,
So we just
if
need
you're
to amend
saying,
that.
I guess that's up to you, Gil.
yep.
If you're saying.
We do show the sidewalk, cause if I remember correctly, last time we before the board, you suggested that.
And I've
And
got my
so we
notes from that
comply.
meeting.
But it was it's like 4 foot, but if your code states it has to be 6 foot, then we will comply with that.
Speaking of the sidewalks, is it safe to assume that the Redwood development that was built off of Perkins Avenue in Huron and Sandusky area is identical to what you're proposing to build here? In other words, if somebody wanted to go look at the one out on Perkins, would those be the same kind of buildings, the same kind of setbacks, the same kind of retention ponds?
Yes.
Because I did go out there, and the retention pond looked a little deep and a little steep. And when I'm looking at these plans, and I know everybody in the audience hadn't had a chance to look at it, it looks like the retention pond is about 20 feet off the back doors of all these inner core units. Is there a distance there you can tell me that from my back door to that retention pond, it's gonna be how far?
I don't know offhand, I could get you that information. I do wanna say that part of the pond design is you have to have what we call a flat top of bank. So there is, I believe it's 8 to 10 feet on the top that's flat. And then where the water line starts, within that first foot, there's what they call a safety bench. So it's over 10 feet, you're only dropping 1 foot. And the thought is, for safety concerns, if somebody were to fall in, they have 10 feet and you're only in 1 foot of water. So the ponds that we're proposing do have that safety bench built in. And I believe, I'd have to look again, I think we typically only make the ponds 6 to 8 feet deep. We do not make them super deep, and they have 3-to-1 side slopes going down, so it's not like it's dug straight down, so they are at, a 3-to-1 vertical to horizontal slope, so, I don't know if that helps.
Where I saw it in Perkins, it looked a little steep. Now,
Okay.
it may be that the water's just really low and I was looking at an empty pond, but it looked to be, if I fell down in there, I know I couldn't get out, and everybody knows I'm not the healthiest guy. So,
Okay.
but if you've got a senior living in there and they stumble down into that,
Or a
I'm looking,
child.
can they get out? Yeah. Or a
So
child.
that is the purpose of the
Yeah.
safety bench, and we do have to do as-builts to make sure the ponds are built to the spec, so that's,
There were a lot of contour lines in it, it looked a little deeper than eight, it might be, I was just looking at it wrong.
Yeah.
That's entirely possible.
it's, I don't know, it's 6 to 8, I would say, I don't, we can count them if you want, but, that's typically what the pond depths are.
Now, what do you define as open space in this point? What am I looking at when I'm looking at open space? Because-
Yeah, it's anything behind the buildings, and I would say the pond area, and that centralized area is what we would consider open space.
Okay,
Nothing obviously in front or, between building to building.
okay.
So,
Bob, maybe you can help me out here. Can you count a stormwater retention pond as open space
Yes.
when you're doing density?
Yep.
Okay, cause I thought you couldn't, that you have to just, the actual real estate.
It-
Okay,
They serve a purpose, but cosmetically, they're called water features.
yeah,
They're gonna have I think the one sheet I saw, there was gonna be a fountain in it. So yeah, they're considered water features and are included in the open space.
okay. Why 137 units? Cause it seems a little tight. When you take out, and like I say, my numbers don't mean nothing, because he just said the open space counts. But when you take out that 9.9 acres and what's left, your density is like 10 units per acre. But if you count the pond, then it's back down to about 5.86. And our comprehensive plan here and everything else says 6 is the absolute max. So it sounds like you've put every ounce of building that you could into this property. Is that a fair assessment, or?
I would say that's not fair assessment.
Okay.
I mean, we could get more units in there, and I would also say that the open space is included in that calculation. I mean, that's just part of how you calculate open space, so
Right.
it's not fair to take the open space out and then try to figure out what the density would be.
Understand?
Yeah, so
The other thing I didn't see in this, and Bob, maybe you can help me out here too, is when we set the PUD regulation, there was no mention about outbuildings and things like that. And I know in the multifamily section, which is in section 15 of our zoning code, it says you can't have the outbuildings. Are we gonna make them say you can't have outbuildings anywhere and get that in writing so that 10, 15 years later, there's not a bunch of sheds out behind all these apartments? Not that there would be, but, and then the last one that I had right off the top of my head was, where are you dumping the snow? Because there was just a little bit of notes in here, but I didn't see a retention area where you're gonna dump 4 or 5 inches of snow when it comes down. So maybe you could clear that up for us.
I don't know if you wanna comment on the shed thing first.
The shed thing, won't happen. If you want us to put something in a deed restriction, more than happy to do that.
That would be kind of what.
We
I would be
don't
comfortable
have sheds. We own the property. As far as the snow removal, we have a plan that probably I did not give to you this evening, my apologies for that, as we show when we have like snow where they have to bank it. So we have a plan for that, and I can certainly give that to you, tomorrow, cause we have a plan for that. We do that with all our properties, cause
Okay.
they're all private streets, we take care of them, and we do all the snow removal, the sidewalks, all that. And so I'm more than happy to give you that, but we have a plan that when we hire people to do the snow removal, they know exactly where to, put the snow.
Okay.
Unless it's like 100 feet, and that's a problem.
Speaking of the sidewalks again, I noticed at the Perkins development, which you said is gonna be exactly like this one, that you only have sidewalks in front of the units on one side of the street, but not both sides. And I was wondering if you could explain the logic there of why you only do sidewalks on one side of the street instead of contiguously around.
That is the pavement section that Redwood has
Yes,
chosen to go
and,
with.
and also, on that thing with the sidewalks, we were FHA compliant.
I understand, I'm just,
So, we are told that we have to have sidewalks around our whole development, which we do, but it's only on the right side. And we got FHA compliant on that, and that's why we do it.
Okay.
And actually, we try to have less concrete in our projects.
what I noticed, I guess I'm still out on it, is your sidewalk looked to be about 3 feet wide.
4 feet,
4 feet, okay. And it was right against the road
right,
with no curb bump.
That's right.
It looked like just somebody widened the road out. So, yes, it's a sidewalk, but I know people, and I know people that are gonna come visit, and they're gonna park right on the sidewalk thinking they can park on the side of the road.
well, what we do, and I don't know if we showed this on this, but on that 4 foot area, we paint it out, and then we show little people,
Okay,
so they can see that this is a walkway.
yeah, it's not there
And we
yet, it's
do
industrial,
that
so.
because FHA. Every time you have a curb cut, that you can become non-FHA compliant.
Right, yeah.
So that's why we do that now.
The-
We've worked very, very hard
From
to
a,
be FHA compliant with all of our neighborhoods, and this will be the same.
from a snow removal aspect, it looks like it makes sense. But from a safety aspect, I wanna see it proven to be safe. I'm sure it is, but we wouldn't put sidewalks right up against the pavement on 60. And I'm not saying that people are gonna be driving up and through your development at the same speeds, but I know how people drive. We've had a slew of accidents, and I just wanna make sure that we do everything. And I would be more comfortable, and it's just me, I don't know how the others feel, if there were sidewalks around, on both sides of the roads. And I don't know if that can fit into the plan, I know that's a lot of concrete, and it's not gonna be a deal breaker necessarily for me. But there has to be sidewalks from every unit to everywhere. And if you have to cross the street, you have to cross the street. 60 is a good example, there's sidewalks down the west side, but not down the east side. So it would be hypocritical for us to say, you gotta have them both sides, but we don't have it on both sides on our state route. Which brings me to the state route. ODOT's letter in here says that they've granted preliminary approval, but they won't grant final approval until you're the owners of the property.
I don't think they call it, I'd have to read the letter. They say approval and they won't issue the permit until Redwood's the owner because they need, obviously, to issue it to the property owner.
Right.
But I'd have to reread it. I don't know that it says preliminary approval. I think it says approval, but.
This said final approval, and once we own the
can look
property.
back. But yeah, that's,
Access permit will be issued after we receive information showing Redwood is the owner of the parcels being developed. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about approval, it says access permit application status. That's to you, the ODOT letter.
yeah, I think, Keith, I shared the email with you that
Right.
I don't know if you got the email from them too, but in the body of the email, they say the plans are approved, and this is basically their way of saying the plans are approved until Redwood owns the property.
Because the permit goes to the owner, and so they won't give us the permit until we own the property. And we won't own the property until we buy it with our loan.
Okay.
But we have the access that's already been agreed to and permitted for that.
There was a lot of discussion on this, and some of this discussion occurred before our times. And I'm guessing you were the guy that was involved in about possibly taking your emergency access road out to our front side driveway there. I know ODOT would prefer that. They would prefer only one curb cut onto 60. I've got the emails to prove it, if you wanna see them. And they said they would, but you were told by a previous township official that it could not be done. And I think the misunderstanding was that it was supposed to come out in the helipad, which wasn't the case. What you guys had proposed, or ODOT, somebody sent a drawing. It would come out at where the driveway for the front parking lot is, and be right there. And frankly, guys, I think that is probably the most make sense thing for an emergency access point. And you make it a one-way only, so that you can only go into it, nobody can come out of it. And then when the ambulance rolls out of here, it goes straight in through that one way, and it doesn't have to get out on 60, cross traffic 2 times. And I'm still thinking that that would be the way to go. I don't know whether you guys would be amenable to revisiting that idea, but from a safety standpoint, I think it's a smarter idea, but again, just one guy. You guys?
I understand the logic behind it. The concern is that there's no guarantee Vermilion Township will always own this property.
Well,
So now you've got a road dumping into private property.
so why don't we just dedicate this as a public road up to the gates?
Well, I think technically the 60 should have a marginal road, but, you know,
ODOT says you shouldn't have a curb cut within 1,300 feet of an intersection. They're asking for 2, and they're getting a waiver basically for both of those curb cuts, because they're both within that 1,300 feet. So if we can minimize that down to 1, that makes a less problematic for ODOT and in the future. As you remember from last January, I would like to see you have a turnout lane where the people leaving Redwood can actually merge out. You do have plenty of space in the right of way to do it, but ODOT didn't provide that as an option for you, or you guys didn't agree to it. But we talked about Wine Street having the out and the in with the dividing. I think that's a safer entrance than what you have proposed here, I'll be frank. I think it is a safer entrance than just a 2-lane in for 137 units. I'd like to see something a little bit bigger and wider, because if you're sitting here and there's a van sitting here and you're both wanting to turn, that's when the accidents are gonna happen. And right now, not your fault, right where you propose to go out onto 60 is the most accident-prone area in Vermilion Township. It has the highest traffic accident count on 60, hands down. It's like 3 times worse than even our bad intersections down the road, because those gas stations are there. There's a lot of accidents there. And if we're gonna add 137 units with 7 trips per day based on your Davy statistics, that's another 1,000 cars coming in and out, right there where it's the worst. So I'm gonna be a little extra cautious before I vote yes on anything like that. So I don't know what you guys feel as far as how it's in and out. You've seen these more than I have, but it just seems like it's packed in tight, it's up against the road. The berm is, I'm guessing, 4 feet high on the front at 60.
I would say, yeah, there's not a gigantic mound.
So there's a berm about this high, then there'll be a sidewalk, and then there'll be a ditch that's about equally as deep. So there's almost a mountain there. And anybody that lives in Ohio knows that when the wind blows over the hill, the snow drops on the other side. So I see that sidewalk being piled and drifted over into the ditch. So I don't know if you guys are gonna be out there plowing the snow on the sidewalk every time it snows or not. But I didn't know if there was a way to work around that, to move that hill back or put some other feature there. So,
I think we could take the mound completely out. I mean, that would be an option, I think.
Originally, I think we were asked to have that mound there, so we can take it away if you want.
well,
Like we were told when we went with the preliminary plan approval, we were asked to do a mound there.
mhm.
So now if you're telling us you don't want the mound there, we'll not have a mound.
I do think the mound is only a couple feet high, and it's
It
gonna,
is. It
it's
looks
gonna
like it's only
have
about 4 feet high.
landscaping. I don't even know that it's 4 feet, but it's gonna have landscaping on it as well. I don't know if that's gonna help block the wind with the snow, but, yeah, I guess it's up to
Well,
city.
get rid of it.
I think the concerns, well, I'm not saying get rid of it, I'm just saying, the
What you
concerns was,
said.
I said something better.
Well, then better is get rid of it.
Your opinion. But, the concern from the residents that were at the last public hearing were that you would be looking at back doors and trash cans and bicycles. And that was the concerns that were voiced. I got the minutes if you wanna read them. And it was the idea of creating something between Route 60 and those back doors that you don't have to look into somebody's sliding door windows and see what's going on in their house.
Sure.
So, you know, I think if I were living in one of those apartments, I'd want some kind of privacy from all that traffic. That would be a concern for me as one of your tenants. Not that I'm ever gonna be one, but I could see a tenant saying, it's awful noisy right here, and you guys seem really close to 60 here. On this map where the picture is, that berm is in the right of way.
No, we wouldn't be doing any work in the right of way.
ODOT doesn't allow that.
No, the only work that's
Okay.
gonna be going in the right of way is they want us to, continue that ditch, that drainage ditch that's along 60 now, but there won't be any, no berming or anything.
The existing parking lot that's in front of where the old store used to be, the edge of that parking lot, from what I saw on the maps last night, is where the right-of-way begins and ends.
Okay.
So that's how far back, it sets more on this side than it does on that side.
Be careful with those lines though.
Yeah, I know, the GIS jumps it off 5-10 feet, but. like I said,
Yeah, I'll assure you that ODOT does not let you do
No.
any work,
Nope.
other than if it comes from them within their right of way, so.
Again, turning that access road, and the access road on the details you gave us said pavers.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure that's a good idea, coming on and off of Route 60.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't you originally told by ODOT it would only be stone? And I even said, when I heard that, I was like, there's no way. There's no way in the world I'm gonna approve that to be a stone.
That is correct.
Just if I can interject, it went from stone to when we formally submitted to ODOT to them saying it has to be pavers. That we wanted it to be pavement, and they said, no, it has to be these
So-
pavers.
Oh, you're telling me ODOT's the one that said you gotta put pavers in?
I'm telling you that.
Yep,
Cause our fire trucks are heavy, especially when they're full of water.
Yeah, they're reinforced concrete pavers, so,
Okay.
yeah, they're designed for heavy
Oh,
truck.
literally, an emergency road is gonna be used by our emergency equipment.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I was just concerned about that. And then,
I
do you
guess-
want,
The other thought was that ODOT did not want people to confuse that as an entrance, and use that, so they thought using these pavers is more of a way to limit people pulling in and out of there, except for emergency use.
okay,
So,
and then, Ohio Fire Code Appendix D says that if you have more than 100 units, you have to have 2 entrances, which basically, they have 1 and now an emergency one instead of 2. And they have to be the square of the hypotenuse from the property, which turns out to about 782 feet. You have 784 feet, which means your 2 driveways are too close together to meet Ohio Fire Code. So turning it into that driveway would solve that problem as well. And I know that's not a big thing, but let's make sure it's right.
And I think I could be wrong on this, chief, but I think the fire chief has the ability to waive those types of requirements. So that is something that the chief could look at.
Yeah, and if he's gonna do that, that's great, we should document that.
Oh, absolutely.
So that if there's an accident somewhere further down the road, at least we covered our bases and got everything right, so.
So, I mean, I do agree with some type of landscaping along 60. Not just for the people that are gonna be living there, not having headlights shine in their unit every time somebody's pulling out of a gas station, but, yeah, when we have visitors to the township pulling out of the gas station, we don't want them looking at the back of these units. Has any discussion, have you had any discussion with ODOT about the ditch? Would they even consider letting you fill it in?
we were told that they wanted it to be restored to the previous, before there was any crossing, so they only want the 2 roadway crossings, the one where the entrance is and then where the emergency access, that was their guidance.
Okay. The other thing, as far as the in and out lanes, I know that the other 2 developments north of here, both developments, I believe there's a left and right turn lane. So I do think that would be beneficial to incorporate a left turn and a right turn lane out of here.
Okay. I would say though, the one out of Wine Street, that's a public road. This is what is considered a private drive, even by ODOT standards, so there is a difference, but I
Right.
just wanna.
Right. I mean, and I'm not saying that that's a deal breaker for me. I'm just recommending it just for the residents that are gonna be in there.
For the record, Wine Street has 66 houses on your Redwood condos and 40 or 49 houses total in the back. So the number of units down Wine Street is less than 100. And they have those 2 lanes there for less than 100. If you're proposing putting in 137, which is a lot more than 100, I think, I agree with Bob, the 2 lanes is necessary, so. Open space, green space, the 3% rule, what are we doing with that and with them? 3% of your acreage is 0.7 acres. And everything that I read says you either create green space with that 0.7 acres, or there's a financial contribution thing that can be done in lieu of a green space.
There's something in the code.
If I could ask Chuck to chime in here, he's done a little research, I could be wrong.
I've done a little research, and I'm not seeing 3%, I'm seeing 519.021 does say that it is important that we have consideration for open space for the community. And every planned unit, PUD development must have some open space. I can't tell you that it's 3% or 5% or any other number. It appears, at least from what I've heard, is that that is part of your proposal. I lived in Redwood apartments for 4 months when, the ones right, you know, that are here, when we were looking for a house. And they had some open space, so I'm sure that you're doing something, and I've heard about a pond, but I'm not able to confirm that number exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just,
And we have open space, and then we have like the pond, and we put, it's a treatment, like we put in, you know, water fountains and such like that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think
Is that in the application? I mean, when is that finally determined? So it's not a surprise to anyone. I guess that is the one thing that I would like to know.
as far as what the open space acreage is,
As far as where it's gonna be, how big it's gonna be, et cetera, yeah.
I would say just refer to
The
the
site
plan,
plan.
yeah. It is broken
they're
out.
calling the wraparound behind all the buildings, the backyards of all the apartments as the open space.
Oh.
So,
And then the interior as well, where
the interior is a pond, there's not a lot of ground to, I don't see somebody setting a swing set in there for kids or
We
anything
don't
like
have
that.
swing sets.
I know.
We don't
park
have, we don't
benches.
allow
I just-
sheds,
I
we
was
don't allow
concerned.
swing sets.
No park benches for
Yeah, I
sitting?
think if you, it's
No, only if it's
actually,
FHA required.
if you look, there's a breakout, I mean, I think we're at
Yeah, I've
like
not seen
over 9 acres of
Oh.
what we're calling open space, but that does include the ponds, so, you know, that is a thing, but.
Thank you.
Where are we at?
Any other questions? Going back to the sidewalk on 60, the more I sat here thinking about it, I don't know for sure that it is 6 foot.
It's in code.
Is it 6 foot? Because I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I thought it was 5. What I would suggest is, you've gotta match what's on 60. So if it's 6 foot on 60, you've gotta go 6 foot.
Agreed.
I guess matched, I mean, just looking at the aerials, it seems to vary from all
There's-
along that side, so I guess matched to
There's newer
what?
sidewalk that
Okay.
was put in as part of a safe routes to school. I
Okay.
think that's the most abundant, and it's gonna be, it is 6 foot then, so it is 6 foot.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think there's any issue if that's what your code calls for, then
That's what we'll do. And that can be part of the approval tonight. Yep.
Anybody got anything to say? I mean, I know there's a lot of opinions out there. I know the residents have a lot of opinions. We all have opinions. We're all entitled to our own opinions. Me, I think this is a good thing. I'm in favor of it. You've got, I look at what I think is best for the township and what's best for this. I've got residential abutting it on the north side, residential abutting it on the west side, and other than this facility here, residential abutting it on the south side. To me, it only makes sense that this is residential. And if I lived in any property surrounding this, that's what I would rather have, because right now it's zoned C2. You could have a motel or a 24-hour truck stop there right now, and nobody could say a word. It's a permitted use. And I know I'd much rather have a low-impact, quiet residential neighborhood than a 24-hour truck stop. And I would think that the people that live around there would feel the same way. That's just my opinion. So I do support it. I think it's best for the township.
Do you think it's too dense?
No, no, It's the same as where I see everywhere.
I'm not against the development, don't get me wrong. I went out to Perkins, it's very nice. I think it's just too dense for this piece of property, and there's some unanswered questions like the well and the ODOT stuff. And I get what you're saying, you have to get the loan, you can't get the loan until you have the approval. Well, I'm of the feeling that the trustees can't give the approval until you own the property. And for that reason, you're not gonna get a yes vote from me tonight, sorry.
Yeah, I don't think that way, because like I said, I've been through this quite a few times, and having a signed purchase agreement contingent upon them receiving the necessary approvals that they need.
But we don't have that here tonight.
I would assume that if we got to this point, there is a signed purchase agreement.
Yeah, so I would just say this, if I may. To come before you to get final development approval, we've spent $380,000 on engineering, on site plan, on permitting, everything. So we had to do that for me to get here tonight. Okay? You don't really care about that, I get that. But we did everything according to your code to be here tonight. You gave us preliminary plan approval 6 months ago, whatever that time frame was, I don't remember now.
14 months ago.
And you gave us parameters, and we agreed to those, and we came before you tonight with those. And I will say this, to spend $380,000, and if you wanna turn us down, go ahead, it's your prerogative. We've done everything according to your code.
There is a signed purchase agreement, I think it was part of the first
It was
submittal.
part of the first,
So,
yeah.
we didn't include it in this one, just so you know.
It
So
was
they
on the
should
first
have it,
one.
you should have it somewhere, it just was not in that packet.
It was on the preliminary plan application, and there were 2 purchase agreements, because there was 2 properties. And so there was one, and there was another one. And that was part of their preliminary plan application that you got.
380,000 is a big number, but on 137 units at approximately $2,000 to $2,500 a unit, you'll make that back in 2 months.
Actually, that's not true. This is a $30 million project
I agree. We'll
that
have
we
to
wanna
pay for that.
bring, and for you to say that, that's incorrect.
How much money do you believe, it doesn't matter, it's
I'm
not
done
part of
with
the
that.
decision.
Go ahead.
Okay. You know, I know what the property's gonna generate potentially. It's not like they're going broke trying to make this happen. And like I said, the retention ponds are too close to the back doors. If you've ever seen a kid drowned, you know that it's too close, period. It's just too close. And there was no offer to fence it. That was part of the discussion 14 months ago, of putting some kind of fence or cattails. And we did talk about the ledge, and that's in there, I agree. But I'm just not comfortable with it, it's that simple. I'm done talking.
All right. Well, I'm going to make a motion to approve the final development plan for Redwood with conditions that, number 1, the sidewalk along State Route 60 is 6 foot. That there is a deed restriction prohibiting any type of outbuildings. And that you amend the paperwork, of course, to reflect that it's not in the city of Vermilion before you file
Yes.
any final.
All 3 items, agreed.
And a sidewalk?
On both sides in it,
No.
being a private street, if it was public streets, it would be different, but private street, that's theirs, that's the way I feel about it. So that would be my motion with those conditions. Is there a second?
Not for me.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Of course.
Of course.
Any discussion?
I think we've had enough discussion. I think that we have a duty as trustees to follow the zoning code very specifically. I don't feel we did that tonight, so can't support it.
Well, I do know that they do have purchase agreements, and typically a purchase agreement is a legal binding option to take ownership in property, and it's been recognized that way as long as I've been in public government, local government. So that's why I'm not concerned about that. No other discussion?
No.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Bachman?
No.
Trustee Kurtz, yes. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is the hotel excise lodging tax collection
There's
procedure.
nobody in here.
No, put it all on paperwork,
Well, and then she's being disrespectful.
right, on top of it. Have a nice evening.
So I will make a motion.
Welcome to
I know
the
there's a
meeting.
resolution on it.
Yeah, if you want.
All right.
City.
Trustee Bachman introduced the following resolution to move forward, whereas revised code section 573908 allows townships to collect up to 3% hotel exercise lodging tax, and whereas the Vermilion Township has collected this hotel excise lodging tax with payments to the township permitted only by check or cash, and whereas many of the township hotel lodging establishments have expressed a desire and easier to be more convenient method to pay the required tax, whereas the Erie County Auditor's Office has a program to assist the townships with the collection of this tax using their online local gov lodging tax software. Now therefore be it resolved, the Vermilion Township Board of Trustees authorizes the fiscal officer to enter into an agreement with the Erie County auditors for the purpose of collecting the township portion of the Ohio hotel, the hotel excise lodging tax, with the monies collected on behalf of the township through the program being submitted to the township quarterly for their portion to be collected, for their portion of the collected tax amount. Resolution seconded by,
I will second that. Motion been made, seconded. Any discussion?
roll call vote though.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Bachman?
Yes.
And trustee Kurtz is a yes. Motion carries.
I'd like to, are we gonna do a motion to combine the clothing allowance to one payment? Can we do that now?
If you're comfortable doing that, we can do that.
Stephanie says there's no problem. Steve said he would prefer to have it in April. So make a motion that we amend our previous clothing allowance to a one-time annual payment in April without changing the amount.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Bachman?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion carries. All right, going to open to the audience. First, we have Mr. Bachman.
I'm gonna step up to the podium tonight. I know this is unusual, but I wanted to put something on the agenda. It wasn't on the agenda, so I signed in so I could say it anyway. On election day, an elected official is given an important responsibility to represent their community in the best of their ability. After that day and for every day of your term, you must actively work to earn the confidence of the people in the community you represent. Confidence in any elected official must always be earned, every day, by every single act, by every single deed, no matter how large or small. It is a fundamental trust that can never be violated. When a resident reaches out to you, you must be there to answer their plea and to act. Sometimes, actions or situations require an elected official to go above and beyond what is generally expected. But elected officials are always required to be fair, honest, direct, and always act within the framework of the law. Anything less is a dereliction of duty and a violation of the solemn oath every elected official must take before holding their office. Now, to earn my respect and earn my confidence, you should know that I am the one who sets the bar to a higher standard that I believe must be met. I expect every elected official and every public employee I come in contact with and everyone else I work with in all levels of government to meet or exceed that self-same high standard I apply to myself. My respect and my confidence in you will always be built upon your integrity, your actions, and your guiding principles alone. In every public meeting we hold, we say the Pledge of Allegiance. It is in that last line of the pledge that everyone who still believes in democracy can find their truest guiding principle in how they choose to act towards each other with liberty and justice for all. We have to behave respectfully of all these people on this side of the room. Everybody we represent. We have to work fairly with everybody we work with. We can't be doing things we shouldn't be doing and acting in ways we shouldn't be acting. We're here to listen, and sometimes I feel some of us miss that mark, and that's why I wanted to speak on that. So that's all I'm going to say tonight on this. I'd rather stand out here with them than sit sometimes over there because it bothers me.
Next is Diana Ladrick.
I'm Diana Ladrick. I live at 3319 State Road. I was only gonna make one statement today, but after Redwood came up, I have a statement to make to you, Mr. Chairman. My first meeting was January of 2024. And at that time, my husband and I introduced ourselves to you, and Mr. Bachman, you were just newly elected to the offices. At that time, at the meeting, it was supposed to be an open meeting, and it was an open meeting regarding Redwood at the beginning. And you decided to do a preliminary rezoning. And when we approached you about that, you said it was just the beginning, it wasn't anything permanent. That we would have another open meeting when it came time to do the final agreement on Redwood. You did not do that, sir. And to me, you can sit there and make faces.
I'm not making faces. I just would have never told you that there's another public hearing.
Yes, you did.
No, I did not.
Yes,
I would have said there is another meeting. It has to go through a two-phase approval process.
Okay, that's your opinion, and you're entitled to your opinion. And that's all I have to say about that. I'm very, very disappointed in you and the vice chairman for what you did tonight. Okay, now, what I was originally going to address, our February meeting. You were not here, Mr. Chairman, and unfortunately, I was ill. I was not here. Our vice chair was in charge of our meeting. And from what I read, it did not go well. What I heard from the residents, it did not go well. He did not preside over that meeting. He has been a public official for quite a while now, and I think he knows how to run a whatever you call it, our meetings. So at this time, I am asking for our vice chair to resign. Not only as the vice chair, I'm asking him to resign as our trustee. There's something going on with him in his personal life also, and I'm not gonna bring that up. And that's where I stand on this right now. If you cannot be at a meeting, I do not feel he is qualified to sit over another meeting after what happened last month. And thank you.
Thank you. Next is Nancy Sauer.
Nancy Sauer, 3601 State Road 60. I am here to call for Trustee Scott's resignation. I was at last month's meeting. It was a disgrace. Total disgrace. If it wasn't for Trustee Bauman and Stephanie Johnson being so gracious and helping him through it, we would probably still be sitting here. I do call for his resignation for our residents. Completely gone. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Dan Landrick.
Wait a minute, I'm coming. I got it. Don't get old, it gets worse, guys. That's why I got 2 extra minutes, cause it takes me time to get here. Everybody knows I'm a 3rd generation living out here. I've been living out here 46 years, dear, 46 years. The 9th, I'll be married 57 years to that beautiful woman.
She's a combination.
And the thing about it is, I would have been the 4th generation, except the 1st generation decided to do Brownhelm instead of the township, so I could have been the 4th generation. And I just don't like the way the township is treating people the way they should. Just like this Redwood. We were told we would have another meeting, but then the fire chief said we couldn't go out there, but we were gonna sit out in the yard if we had to. The zoning board approved 300 feet, and 2 people, I can't mention no names, 2 people decided to knock that down to nothing. So, we've had a retail business meeting in this, and nobody would come except Ken would come and a bunch of us people came. And we found out we need retail businesses in the township. And you knocked down, you wouldn't let us have the 300 feet, and we're still requesting the 300 feet. That will eliminate a lot of the problems with the in and out also that they're talking about. And we talked to a lot of people that live down here off of Kneisel and everything, and they said absolutely no way will they accept the township giving them a exit or entrance into this thing here. Everybody who lives down there said absolutely no way. Also, Bill Vi, who's a very good retail businessman in this town, very well known, he says we need one. And he's had a couple offers, if we would build a storefront out here, we could have some businesses out here. That's as far as that goes, because I see again, we didn't get the 300 feet as usual. We don't get our way. Now, my biggest problem is, why can't the people of the township get some of their way? Why is it 1 or 2 people and an automatic yes from one, and another one kind of argues in our favor, and he gets thrown out, he's not allowed to talk much. So why is it always one person gets his way because the other person always says yes when you're voting on it? Why can't we, as residents of this city, have something to acknowledge that we are the people? Telephone poles at the American Legion. Two telephone poles came down, and I believe you had to show up because a gas line was hit. Those poles were ready to fall over. All the poles coming this way from the American Legion up to Route 2 are ready to tip over and fall over, and the wires are hanging in the trees. We have somebody that comes here all the time. He won't even look at the ditches, which are sky high with junk and garbage, and they're not getting cleaned out. We've asked him to look at Darrell Road. You can't see, looking south, because the stuff is so far overgrown, looking south, can't get that done. We talked about, can't see coming out of Mason Road up here, looking north. There are a bunch of trees and stuff we can't see. Why can't we ever get anything done? We bring it up, Who went and looked at it? Have you looked at it? Have you looked at it? Has anybody looked at the trees? Did you go see all the wires hanging in the trees? Have you done anything to get it accomplished? What?
Maybe you should spend $380,000 on plans and you can get something done.
Oh, I forgot about that, that's right. So that's what we're all looking at. We can't get nothing done. We just can't seem to. And then this thing here, Redwood, how many houses are going to go back up here behind Chardonnay? A man just bought all that property. What's he gonna build? I bet you've already heard. We're gonna make a bet with you.
I've heard it sold.
Yeah, you've heard it sold like the rest of us. And what's gonna go in at, back there? Is it gonna be another 50 houses, another 10,000 apartments? What are we gonna get? Right over here in Vermilion, up to the tracks, they're building all kinds of houses. All them cars are coming out this way. You can't get up and down Route 60 half the time. And you're gonna put another 1,100, 1,200 cars a day out here in front with these apartments? What do we need apartments for? Go look at the mess they've got over there in Sandusky and you'll see what we're talking about. When was the last time Redwood cleaned the basins that they put in over there and the ditches they put in? They haven't touched the ditches since they were put in. They haven't cleaned the ponds since they were put in. Who takes care of them? Who maintains them? Nobody. People over there, you talk to them, they open their front door and the water runs into their living rooms. Duh. And they're gonna put some more retention ponds, and who's gonna take care of them? Maybe me and Ken can get paid and we'll go do it, who knows? This is what we're putting up with Redwood. It's a terrible place to go. If you look at, they're doing them in Amherst now. They're doing them by the turnpike, and everybody's complaining about the junk they're building. Sorry. Have you had enough of me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You're at your 6 minutes.
I have my glasses on this time, and I'm on vacation, so I might as well let you know. Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Mr. Ledger. Next is Mr. Novotny.
Brian Novotny, 1307 State Street. Here today to see what the answers to my questions are that I asked at the last meeting. They were supposed to have answers today.
All right. What are your questions?
Well, you should know, Bob, they're
I
in the
wasn't at
minutes.
the last meeting.
Well, Mr. Scott said that there'd be answers. He would have answers for me.
Okay.
This meeting.
What's your question?
Does Mr. Scott have any answers for me?
I'm not talking to Mr. Scott. This is open to the audience. You have the floor right now.
Well, can you ask Mr. Scott what his answers are to my questions?
Can you put your questions, can you put them out here so we know what we're referring to?
They're in the, should be in the January meeting's minutes.
Okay.
Does anyone have a copy of those? Andy, I don't.
I do.
Okay.
But I'm having a conversation here, I guess, so.
Okay, so what are my answers
What's
to
your
the
questions?
questions? What are my answers to those questions?
What's your question? Why can't you read the question?
It's not my job.
Okay.
I asked the
tell you
questions
what.
already.
I tell you
Why
what.
don't I get a response?
I will look at those minutes and you will get a response in writing.
Good.
Okay?
Um,
Through Mr. Sexton's office, you will get a response in writing.
what does the zoning inspector give me?
He's the township administrator.
Okay. And also, like to make the comment too, why don't you guys discipline Mr. Scott when he lied in front of the Board of Elections? Saying that he had, people complain about me and he had no proof of that.
I'm not aware that Mr. Scott lied to the Board of Elections.
He said he had 4 people that complained about me and he has no proof that they did.
I don't think he doesn't have proof. If he had 4 people complain, he had 4 people complain.
I did a public records request and he has no people that complained to him. He had no records of anybody complaining to him.
From what I understand, because it was not in writing, it was a verbal communication, and people specifically asked if he would not identify them for fear of retaliation.
Well, he also said that he was gonna have responses for me this meeting, and obviously he doesn't. So obviously he can't do his job. So maybe he should resign. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Mr. Novotny. And last is Mr. Rowe.
Start the clock once I get up there, please. Yes, I will leave it.
Mr. Chairman,
Wait a minute, you gotta start the clock.
start the
Okay.
clock. And I may ask for an extension ahead of time. Mr. Chairman, my name is Don Rowe. I live at 14714 Kenisel Road. I'm gonna talk about several things. One of those, I've already voiced my opinion after the January meeting. Our road crew superintendent, Steve Young, is a very talented individual. He possesses mad skills. No one can argue with that. I asked then for you guys to revisit his pay scales. I think that his pay scales should be anywhere from $33 to $35. And I understand there can be a comparison to other townships. I don't have anything to do with this, it's just suggestions on you guys. I think we missed the mark a little bit on that. And we're not gonna have Steve around forever. Don't know how much longer Steve's gonna work, but he is a talent. And pay should be in accordance with that talent. I asked all three of you, and you agreed 100%. I wanna say you missed the mark a little bit. I don't think that small difference would have made that much difference in the end, because we do have the money. Through the chair, I'd like to speak to our road crew superintendent, Steve Young. Mr. Young, there's been a lot of snow this year, a lot of ice, a lot of people tripping and falling, accidents, whatever. You and your crew, sir, have done a marvelous job.
Thank you.
And I would like for you to tell the crew, including, I think we have 2 temporary truck drivers, one.
Oh, no temporary guys, just me and the other full-time Ryan.
I thought we had a couple guys we were gonna hire
Nah,
for
we-
truck driving, for snow plowing.
Nobody was qualified.
Okay.
That and they, they wanna do it on their time. They don't wanna
Okay.
come out in the middle of the night.
Yeah, you guys do a great job, Steve, and I think you need to be
Thanks.
acknowledged for that. Mr. Chairman, we need to pursue a levy for the ballot in the next election for our fire department. Our fire department needs the funding, and the time to start is now. I don't think anyone can argue that our fire department is second to none. And through the chair, I would like to speak to Fire Chief Frank. Frank, there's been a lot of stuff going on, man. I seen an accident on Route 2 where they had the highway closed, going to Baumhart Road. I'm sure the fire trucks were crossed. I'm sure you guys were involved with that. There's a scrap truck on the other end of Route 2 road closure a couple days ago with a fire. And then on my street, there was a devastating house fire. And they battled that fire and did a great job. It's a disaster to the home, but will you tell you and your crew, you guys do an amazing job.
Absolutely. Tell them every day I see.
I know you do, but I'm speaking from the resident side of the township. Mr. Chairman, I can't tell you how embarrassed I am that Redwood showed up to this meeting. They were here to talk about whatever they wanted to talk about, and then they left.
Yeah.
No respect.
They never, and actually, they were a little bit short, and other than getting thrown out of the meeting by the sergeant at arms that we don't have. When she attacked our trustee, I was pissed. And the entire audience should be pissed too. It was absolutely embarrassing. And if you wanna talk embarrassing, I've been in all the meetings, and I'm on the zoning commission. I've been in all the meetings, and what they have presented, and I've said this before, Mr. Chairman, I built homes, so did you. What they presented to the trustees was embarrassing. They had no infrastructure, they didn't know what they were doing from the beginning. They said 137 units and the water was gonna go to the city. And at that time, the cities had their own issues that they asked for help from the township in a letter writing because it's gonna cost them $70 million to revamp their system. And they didn't have any questions. The young man that was here by himself. And you could tell that he was struggling. Anyone that attended those meetings, they didn't have any answers. And then it went for a vote, and we know how that turned out. And then we had the firehouse meeting that we'll refer to. The problem being is what I wanna bring up, Mr. Chairman, is last year, and I could check my notes, meetings are recorded. I asked the trustees, because the detail is in the final plans. And if these are the final plans that Redwood presented today, I can tell you that they are not complete. And there are issues. You voiced some, Ken's voiced some, Roger didn't voice any, I don't think. But if you did, Roger, I apologize. I don't know if you voiced any opinions or not, to the plans. But the plans are not complete from what, I haven't seen the plans, but they're not complete from what I hear. So I took the podium at the township trustee meeting and said, the details in the plan, if they are not acceptable and complete, where would you three be? And you all unanimously said that you would decline. And what I've heard, I haven't seen the plans, what I've heard is they are not complete. And then, Mr. Chairman, when they get up and leave after they speak, and we have a portion of our meeting that's open to the public, that we could, through the chair, with your permission, speak to them. I had several questions I want to ask them, and they're gone. They should have had to stay here, like we have to stay here and listen to their stuff. They should stay here and listen to what we have to say. One thing I would like to say about Redwood, Mr. Chairman, is when I asked this question to the three trustees, all three of you it was unanimous, you voted that you would turn it down. Would you say that I haven't seen them, would you say the plans are complete?
For this type of project?
Yes.
Yeah. It's typical. They're typical to what I see. Yes.
There's been several things that I know from several of the meetings, whether arborvitae's, fences, I don't know if any of that stuff in there, setbacks, the sheds, sidewalks, those were all issues that I was gonna ask him. Mr. Chairman, and I actually wanted to ask him, because there's nothing wrong with asking. Would this, if it is finally approved, would they, Redwood, reassume the cost involved in the original sidewalks from the original Redwood? And that's what I wanted to ask them here tonight, and I'm sure they would have said anything, but it's not in writing, so, but it would be recorded. And I think you guys thought that was a good idea. There's nothing wrong with asking. Ask them to assume the cost of the upkeep for the sidewalks in the original Redwood. In your guys' discussion, Mr. Bennett, there's no law against that, asking. It's a negotiation.
Certainly no loss. I can agree with that.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't like what I saw today with Redwood, not with you, with Redwood, and the way that they left. So I'm gonna cut some of the stuff out that I was gonna speak of. I'll hold it to another time, because the meeting has gone long. They got out, we're still here. Mr. Chairman, in 15 days, it's gonna be springtime.
Yes, it is.
Thank God.
I hear that. Thank you, Mr. Rowe. No one else signed in. Have a couple announcements. The first, there's a special forum discussion on how real estate tax is calculated. This meeting is to be held at Ritter Public Library. That's this Friday, I think, the 7th?
Yes.
From 1:30 to 3 o'clock. That's for the Vermilion Township residents. Advanced registration is required, so if you haven't registered yet and you're able to go, please contact Serving Our Seniors. You can Google them, call them, they'll get you signed up. Last announcement, our next meeting will be held on Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. in these chambers.
Mr. Chairman, if I could. Because Mr. Rowe mentioned the fire levy, one of the items I wanted on the agenda tonight was investigating the fire levy. I did go down, like you did, to the OTA conference, and there was a how to run a successful levy campaign. It was run by a professional company that basically manages levy campaigns, and I think it might behoove us to at least get a phone call or get a visit from them and say, what can you do for us? and what are the things we have to do, because from that presentation, I learned there's a lot more than just slapping it on the ballot.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of work that goes into it, and there's a 3-month, 6-month, 9-month, and I think that we need a professional to help us get this levy, and I'm thinking of an apparatus levy, I don't know, but I don't know. He's the fire chief, the fire department knows what they need more than anybody, so the discussions need to start happening now. So, I don't know if you wanna give this guy a call or not, that's from the OTA website. And then this is the zoning thing that I gave to Mr. Sexton, one for you, Mr. Scott, each.
Ken, can I ask a question? I know
It's up to
meeting's
the
not-
chair.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask him one question?
Yes.
I totally agree that we need, you know, a levy for our fire department. We need it badly. But with taxes going up this year, the schools are asking for 37 million. So we have to really decide where we're going with this, but I think it's a good idea that we look into it, because we do need the funds for our fire department, but I just think right now, we're gonna have a really, really hard time with this, trying to get it through right now. Cause you're talking a lot of money here, and talking to people, they don't even wanna vote for the school levy. So, if they don't wanna vote for the school levy, are they gonna vote for our fire levy? So, that's all I wanted to stipulate.
Yeah, thank you.
I would only add that in the past 14 months, we've had 3 major fires, and that's probably the only 3 we had probably last 10 years. I don't know if we've had any other big structure fires in 5 or 10 years. Yeah, so there's been a lot of fires lately, so there's definitely a need. I see month after month, the chief's numbers go up, month after month. Those numbers are never gonna come back down. There's always gonna be more calls. Those numbers are always gonna grow. That means the township is growing, so we need to set our priorities, and I think that the fire department with this, forgive me, antique equipment needs to be addressed sooner, not later. We've got trucks that are, what, 20 years old, or close to it?
20 plus.
Yeah, and the average life is, what, 10 to 15 at the most? But, without making Doug talk, his voice.
According to NFPA, truck life is 20 years. However, if the truck is tested and passes testing, it can now continue to be in service as long as, once it fails testing, then you would have to make the repairs to recertify that truck.
It's more likely that a 20-year-old truck's gonna fail before a brand new truck.
Well, you have more problems with a 20-year-old truck than you do a newer truck.
And a new fire truck costs about 1 million, 2 million?
Well, it depends, yeah.
It's not a small number. It's not like a pickup truck at the Ford dealership. It's a 7-figure number.
Well, those are now 70,000, so.
So, the other thing was, I'd asked Keith about putting the minutes on for the BZA, and he said, I don't know, that's why I wanted to talk
No,
about it.
I think that-
But I guess you guys had a discussion?
I think it's arranged to go on the new website.
Okay.
Get it up and running.
That was my question. When is that, and what is the status?
I think it's almost ready to go, correct?
I sent out an email to all the trustees for their feedback. I've received some feedback and passed that along to the developer. And as soon as the changes are made, then I'm gonna assume that probably within the month it should be up and running and implemented.
Thank you.
Yes.
And then on my request for 51921 versus Senate Bill 122, I don't know if you've had a chance to read the Senate bill, but they're gonna strip away a lot of language on agriculture as far as subdivisions, and it looks like that Senate bill's gonna pass, and it'll go to the House, and so the law's gonna change. With that said, I know we were looking at chickens, we've been looking at chickens for 2 years, and I'm just saying that maybe we ought to wait until the new law gets put into effect before we actually change our zoning to reflect the new law.
I think that's a really good idea, because in my opinion, 519.21 is probably the worst code/law that was ever written.
Right.
You have to be, no offense, you have to be an attorney to understand what the heck they're saying in that. It is so hard.
They cite chapter 7 and chapter 5, and that's 7 is cities, and chapter 5 is townships, so it makes no sense.
Yeah.
So, but that part is going away. But the acreage part is also going away. That's what I noticed in what I read, is there will be no minimum acreage or no maximum acreage. If you want livestock in your agriculture, or whatever your lot size is, you get to have it. So we should be making a zoning code that's restrictive of what the state code says.
And we can't.
Yeah.
So we have to follow that, so.
So, I guess I would mention that only so that the people who are gonna ask us, what are we doing about chickens?
Right.
Now we have a valid excuse to wait. The state is changing the law significantly.
Especially with egg prices.
Yeah.
Everybody wants
Egg
chickens.
prices, everybody wants to raise eggs.
Mr. Chairman, April 2nd is the best day in the world to hold that meeting. That is my birthday.
Happy birthday.
So, the only number 77, by the way, so watch out.
Wow. 77 years young.
Yes.
And-
As long as you know, that's the best day you can hold this meeting.
And he wasn't born on April Fool's.
I did take a couple pictures out in Perkins. I'm gonna lay them out on the table for you guys to look at, and anybody else that wants to look at them, because this was the one that I was talking about with Redwood, with that berm, and that's why it concerns me. So if anybody wants to look at them, and I'm sure Stephanie for 25 cents would make you a copy if you wanted. So, they're up here if somebody wants to look at them after the meeting, and that's all the extra things that I had.
All right, well, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Motion made and seconded, all in
8:05.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. 8:05.